So here I am at the Glasgow World Con 2024, and I'm very lucky that I was on a panel with the famous Wendy Van Camp, and she's gracious enough to come here and to grant me a very, very brief interview. So how are you, Wendy, today? How do you like this?
I've been enjoying Worldcon. I'm part Scottish, and I've never been to Scotland, so the opportunity to come to Glasgow was just a wonderful excuse. I'm very happy to be here.
So Wendy is well known for her speculative poems, and the first and obvious question is, how did you get started? What got you into writing poetry?
Well, I never really thought of myself as a poet. It was the last thing on my mind, and the funny story is, when I was a TV producer-director, I actually did a series of programs called Coffee House Poetry. But the poets were so rude to me, so nasty. I remember distinctly telling my husband, I am never, ever going to work with a poet again. And yet here I am. But actually, I got started rather late in poetry. I was a novelist before and a television producer-director even before that. But I was basically at a local con, and I wanted to wait for an ice cream social that would take place in about 2 hours. And so I just sat on a bench, and right beside me was a sign that said Scifaikuest workshop. And I went, I don't know what that is, but there's cold water in that room. I'm going to go in. And so I did. And I got my water, and I sat down in a chair. And there were about 8 or 9 people in the room. However, one woman went to the front, and she introduced herself as the instructor. And she looked right at me and says, thank you for coming to my poetry workshop. You will be my only student. And I went, well, who are all these other people then? She goes, oh, I hope you don't mind. They're friends of mine. They're all editors of national poetry magazines. You don't mind, do you?
That was a lucky break.
Well, no, I wanted to run out that door because I hadn't written a poem since high school. But I thought about it, and I realized this woman wanted to be seen by these people. It was important to her to teach a class in front of them. And so I decided to stay. I really had nothing better to do. So, so I took her class. I wrote my very first Scifaikuest poem, which I'm now well known for. And at the end, she said, would you please stand up and read your poem to the class? And I kind of went, what class? I'm the only one here. But I did. I stood up, I read the poem, I sat down, and she started to do a critique of the poem. This is when one of her editor friends leaned over and whispered into my ear, I loved your poem. I want to publish it. I'll pay you. And that, my friends, is the day I became a poet.
Great. And we are so glad you did. So in one or two words, one or two sentences, what keeps you going?
I think it's just my love of poetry. I really enjoy writing it, especially micro poetry, which is my specialty. I'm really not very good at writing longer form poetry. But I keep trying.
You found your niche.
I really enjoy the shorter, the better, I guess. My Dragonette poem, I think, is my first attempt at a Riesling length poem, and I hope it does well.
I hope so. I hope so too. And my last question is, what future projects can we look forward to that are coming from you?
Well, I work on a number of things. I just ended my term as a poet laureate. So right now I am a co-chair of the poetry committee at SFWA, and we're developing a Nebula Award for poetry. I'm also helping to develop programming for poets of the SFBA. I've also been recently hired as a radio host for KPFK 90.7 Los Angeles, and the program is called Poets Cafe. And I am interviewing poet laureates from all over the United States. My first episode is on the air, and you can find it if you want to listen to it. They have a SoundCloud archive of all the broadcast programs. So that's kpfk.org, and that'll give you directions to find the radio show if you're interested.
It sounds like Wendy will be very, very busy for the foreseeable future. So thank you for taking the time out to answer these questions.
thank
and look
you.
forward to reading more of your poems.
Well, thank you.
Goodbye.